Welcome to the ERP Perspective. AI promises faster ERP transformation, but in regulated organization, speed means nothing unless every change can be trusted. Today, I'm joined by Ramzan Amin, CEO of Sim Consulting, to discuss how AI-powered testing is changing the way public sector and regulated organizations deliver ERP programs. We'll explore why assurance has become the foundation of innovation, how organizations can move faster without increasing risk, and what the future of AI in enterprise transformation really looks like. This is a conversation about trust, technology, and the future of ERP. Let's dive in. Ramzan, welcome to the ERP Perspective.
Hi, George. Thanks for inviting me. Pleasure to be here.
Great to have you on the show. I'm really excited for today's conversation. Obviously, AI in regulated ERP. And how do you innovate when every change must be proven? So I'm really looking forward to getting into that with you. I mean, before we even start, Ramzan, please can you give us a bit of an understanding of your background, your career, and what's brought you to present day?
Okay, so a little bit about myself. So I started out life working in R&D, writing software for mobile phones. Actually, some of the early features, things like call waiting, call barring. So some of the features that exist in your phone today is something I worked on long way back. That was great, but I was curious and more interested in the more wider piece of how things work end to end. And so I moved more into things like testing and then delivery management and then program management and then looking after transformations, large scale transformations, which is where I am today. So my background started off as an employee. Worked through a number of organizations, private sector, and then I went into contracting, which is what some professionals tend to do. And then I opened my own organization in 2011. A little bit after the big financial crash. Wasn't probably the best time to do it, but as they say, a lot of good businesses kind of develop after significant economic crashes. So I took a punt, went for it. It took me a little while to get up to speed, and then when I got to a certain place, and COVID happened. I thought, okay, another setback. So these are the challenges you have to face as a business, things you have to overcome, and they're all character building. You learn about yourself. You learn about how adaptable you are, whether you're cut out from owning your own business or not, because they can be challenging, and you will face headwinds, things you don't expect. But yeah, so far so good. Can't complain. And yeah, I'm here today with Sim Consulting. Also created my own AI ERP testing platform, automation platform, which is NLP based, which we could probably get into a bit later. So yeah, so far so good. I can't complain. It's been good. Challenges, yes, but enjoyable, I would say.
It's amazing, Ramzan. I totally agree with you. I think any business that can survive, these situations or crashes in the economy or anything, if you can survive that, you can really thrive when the market is maybe a little bit normal.
Whatever normal means these days.
There's always something going on. But yeah, I mean, you've had such a good journey with obviously Sim Consulting. And I think your passion is sort of helping the public sector. If I'm correct, you've helped probably many businesses within that industry.
Yes, I've been through public sector, so central government, local government, but I guess I'm kind of slightly different because I've also done private sector. So I've seen both sides of the fence. I've also worked on the SI side and the client side. So I've seen both sides of the fence. So I guess I'm kind of unique in that fashion. There are plenty of others who have had the same experience. And I think it provides you a more holistic, rounded view of challenges. So you know what it's like on the other side as well as the client side. But Sim Consulting ourselves, we focus mainly on the client side. So we help them through independent assurance to make sure everything from the right business case through to procurement of the right product, and then end-to-end transformation as well. So we look at all aspects of a transformation, especially in the ERP space.
Amazing. Fantastic. And I know over the last 10 years or maybe even more now, you've been helping these public sector and obviously regulated organizations deliver these ERP transformations, but not just with obviously confidence, but helping them through these AI-driven sort of testing, assurance, and audit-ready quality frameworks as well.
Yeah, I think we're talking about the modern systems that are coming out in ERP. Obviously, they come with a lot of AI, and AI is a big buzzword at the moment, but a lot of people are unsure how to make it work, how it fits, where to start, what it means, etc. And I think where I would start is you always have to have the right governance in place. If you don't have the right governance, you're going to get lost along the way. So not governance in the sense of strict governance or over cumbersome governance, but governance which allows you to make a decision where it can inform you as to whether what you're doing is right or not. So, I mean, we have a set of principles adopting AI in local authorities. It's governance first, evidence-led approach. So start with the problem, not the technology. There's lots of AI technology out there, ChatGPT, Claude, Gemini, Grok, inbuilt AI agentics in ERP. But the question is not the technology. The question is, what problem are you trying to solve? So I would start there first. And then you need to have humans involved, not leave it all to AI, because it's not very safe, especially in public sector organizations where everything has to be evidence and it can be challenged by anyone. Members, central government, even the public themselves can challenge it, especially because anything you do in the public sector has an implication. So if it's unproven or you haven't proven with enough evidence, it could impact your council tax bill. It could end up a missed benefit payment, people being paid incorrectly via payroll. So that's a legal duty at the end of the day. So you've got to prove it legally, not a commercial. So in the private sector, the CFO or CXO members only report to a board and shareholders. In the local authority and public sector, you are reporting to many other people, and they often are a little bit more skeptical, I would say, than the private sector.
Yeah.
So they want to see the evidence of, well, okay, how did you prove that this worked? And they'll always look for gaps or errors that they can act upon and say, well, why are we using AI for this reason? Look, here's an example of where it went wrong. Now, it might be an isolated incident and it may not be manifestly a big issue, but it gets the headlines. So you have to be extra careful in how you implement it and you prove it first.
Yeah.
So you get the legal and ethical position right, you get the right governance in place, you build observability, and then you could switch off. You'd be able to switch off quickly as well if you think it's not the right thing. But if you want to do AI in the public sector and even in the private sector, but most in the public sector, you need to get your data right, your data foundations right. And that's not just AI, but that's also major ERP implementations. If your data is not good or clean, you're only going to take the bad data into the future state. So you're going to end up with similar problems. And I think, if you start with continuous proof, evidence-led and governance, bring those three things together, there's no reason why AI can't be successful in the public sector either.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
I think these regulated organizations, I know they're under so much pressure to adopt AI and be up to speed with maybe their competitors, or getting maybe bad press saying they're not being up to speed with the latest technology and things like that. But my argument would be, what is more pressure? Maybe being a little bit late to the party in implementing AI, or having the consequences of implementing it too quickly. You gave some fantastic examples there of where it could go wrong, the chaos it could cause.
Yeah.
Surely that's more pressure than maybe being a little bit late to the innovation, doing it in a safer way. And
Yeah, I think for me, it's not about slow or fast. I know there's a tendency for people to do that, or it's too slow or it's too fast. I think it's not about it. I think it's about getting the foundations right, which is what I just explained. Governance, evidence-led, and having a human in the process, and and that it's proof is continuous. So if you get those three things right, then you'll get the natural speed that it should have got at, if that kind of makes sense. Yeah, and you don't need to worry about if it's too slow or too fast, because if you're looking at those two factors, you're probably making the wrong decision at the outset, I would say. It's not about speed, it's about getting it right.
I think it's that balance between
Yes.
innovation and control. But that's a good way to look at it. I think it would take the pressure off just by changing that mindset or that perspective from not too slow, not too quickly, just right, the right balance and the right control.
Yeah. So, and I think if you can give the public sector community that framework, as I call it, and say, this is a safe space. We've got the governance. We've all agreed with the right governance. We've agreed that it's going to be evidence-led. We've agreed that we're going to solve the problem, not the technology, and we're going to have a continuous proof cycle, and we're going to have an accountable human involved, and we have observability and switch off capability if it's not right. And you go away and you do it, and you come back at a certain iterative time frames and say, how's it going? What are the results? What have we found? What do we need to improve? So that's where the governance comes in. But then you need to have the sponsorship to support that. So the senior level management And I think you used to put all these things in place, what I call the foundations. If they're all in place, there's no reason why AI or technology, digital transformation can't be successful. But people tend to kind of skip over these things a little bit and worry about the speed. And then they start to trip up along the way. And then you're trying to put those things into place as you're doing. And yeah, you kind of get pulled in different directions.
And I think the balance is definitely the right key. And
Yes.
Rams, what makes ERP transformation fundamentally different in public sector and regulated environments compared to the private sector programs?
I think the difference is you've got to discharge legal duties to citizens in the public sector. In the private sector, yes, it runs the business. Yes, it has commercial implications. Yes, it has shareholder implications. Yes, you have to report to the board. But in the public sector, you have equivalent, if you like, boards, if you want to call it that. But you have a wider community for which you're responsible to. So you have central government, they give you your funding. So they're a massive stakeholder. You've got your members, local councillors. They are key stakeholders. You've got your executive directors. You've got your S151 officer. So that person has to be an independent person in assessing the financial implications to a local authority. You've got the public who can submit FOI requests to say, okay, I want to know more about this initiative that you are doing and why you are doing it, because I think it's not in the best interest of the public sector or the community. So you can get hit by various different angles in the public sector in terms of stakeholders. So I would say that's the big difference. So you have to be legally compliant. And one thing I always forget is the auditors, not just internal auditors, but external auditors. So you can be pulled up on those two fronts alone. So you have a lot more accountability and provability to do in the public sector than in the private sector, which is why it can often be seen as, oh, it's so slow. It's not necessarily slow. You've just got more implications if it's not right, if that makes sense. So you've got to prove everything is correct.
I mean, I think there's so many lessons to be learned from each sector. And I think they probably act in situations and how you deal with situations both are 100% different. But I'm sure you've learned so many stories and so many lessons from having that experience in both areas.
No, definitely. I mean, in the private sector, you're driven by the return on investment in the shortest time frame possible. So that's the pressure there, because obviously they have shareholders and they want to get their reports on the investment that they've made and when they're going to get the return on investment, their efficiencies, the savings. That's not to say that doesn't exist in the public sector. It does. But in the public sector, you've got a whole bunch of other things you need to prove. Like, is it legally compliant? Is it audit proof? Are the key statutory responsibilities being taken care of, for example? Yep. So if you're paying people in payroll, is that 100% correct? One of the biggest things you don't want to do in an ERP transformation, especially, is get in the headlines for the wrong reasons. And there are, as everybody knows, examples of where that's happened, not to name any names, but they're out there. And that's because they were not following the right process or the right framework or the right governance. And when that happens, you get an outcome which is unfavorable, probably the wrong headlines for all the wrong reasons. And it's really difficult. It's easy to make a mistake, and then the bad press is exponentially really hard to counter because it gets out there very quickly, which is why it's better to spend the time to get your approach correct from the beginning, the foundations correct from the beginning, which is why I spend a lot more time in the prerequisite phase, or the pre-mobilization phase, as I call it, to say, is our data good enough? Is it in the right state? Has it been cleansed sufficiently? Is the business sufficiently engaged? So in other words, can they provide the resourcing to support such a major transformation? Especially for organizations that have never been through it. So they don't know what they don't know. So I try to impress on them, this is a big beast. It is literally a big beast. It will consume almost everything that goes on in the organization. Do you know what your as-is operative processes are today? Can you provide resources into the transformation program? And I don't just mean on an ad hoc basis, but they have to exist throughout the duration of the life cycle. So for me, these are the key tests that I always put forward to the business before any transformation starts, because they're not IT projects. They are business transformations. And that's the other thing that people get wrong. It's not an IT project. It's not. It's a business transformation. The IT is there. It'll do what it says on the tin. The question is, how do you adopt it into the business, and how do they understand it? And what do you need to do to make that a success.
100%. I think it's a tool. How do you use that tool? The tool doesn't change. A hammer's a hammer, how you use it. So I 100% agree with you. And you kind of touched on the next point I wanted to bring up. I was going to ask, where do you see organizations getting the balance wrong, either moving too fast about control, or another part was too slowly to realize value. And I know it's the wrong way to look at it, going too fast or too slow. But are there any examples of where, you know, they are looking at too slowly to realize any value?
Are there any examples? I think there are always examples of where people think it's too slow. So, for example, I've been on programs where I've come in and I've seen a preliminary plan which says immediately after a procurement of either a product or a implementation partner, we're going to literally start implementation the month after. I'm thinking, sounds good. However, realistically, if you actually did all the checks that I just mentioned, you probably find you're not ready. What's going to happen is they will turn up, the systems integrator. You don't have everything in place. The clock's started, not just the clock for implementation, but the clock for cost has started as well. So you're already burning cash and resource time from month one, but all your prerequisites are not in place, and immediately you're playing catch up immediately. So you're pulling resources into this massive transformation. But what about BAU? Who's looking after that? You've still got a service to operate. So this is why I always say, do a proper sense check of where you are. Go through the list that I've just mentioned and be honest, because you think you're saving money and saving time by starting early. But what will happen is it'll just take longer. You'll have more issues because you haven't got the prerequisites in place, and it will cost you more. So if you think you're saving time and money, you're not.
I think it's about doing it. If you are going to do it early, it's about doing it right. There's no point
doing it right.
there's no point of saying, yeah, we'll take more time to do it, but then not putting the right infrastructure in place, or being honest with those questions that you mentioned, or having an expert who you can go to and say, look, we need your assistance. We need to really not leave any rock unturned to really analyze before we tackle this beast. And I think when you mentioned beast, that is the right term. It will consume the business either in a very positive way, or obviously, like you said, we've all seen them headlines and bad press about certain implementations. So
yeah, I'm not saying take all the time in the world. I'm not saying that either. All I'm saying is you give yourself a window to get ready, but you have to meet that window. It's not an optional thing. We have to mandate it to say we've got a 3 to 4 month window to get ourselves prepared, ready and fit, because we'll be in a much better position to do this when we're all aligned. And you then have a better understanding. And I've actually done this actual process, and it's actually been very beneficial to the business because they have a much better understanding of what's coming. Can they get an opportunity to ask questions as well, to say, but what about this and what about that? By the time we've gone through that 3 to 4 month window, they're in a much better mental state to start it. They have a much better idea of what's coming. And I'm not saying we do 100% of all the prerequisites, because that's never achievable, but you're in a good enough place to start. There'll always be bits you have to do along the way, but you've got the core of it in hand, and people come there ready to start the race. Not, we've started, I've forgotten my trainers, I haven't got my shorts, I didn't bring a spare kit, and you have to keep going back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. That eats time, confidence.
Yeah. In that preparation phase is like you said, you wouldn't start a marathon when you woke up. There's the process of getting ready and preparing, and also analyzing these situations. What could happen, these contingency plans and things. What do we do in this situation? And if you rush that preparation phase, that risk just increases. One thing that I'm really excited to get onto is the ERP buzzword of the year, artificial intelligence. It's not always a buzzword. There are definitely some really good use cases, but as AI becomes a part of ERP, how does the role of testing and assurance need to evolve with it?
I think this is actually a good question now, because I think it's slowly becoming to the fore. I think when a system can change, which it does, in the modern ERP, it's changing every quarter and sometimes every month, with cybersecurity changes as well, which has just been recently released as an update from Oracle themselves. So they're now doing monthly cybersecurity drops, so plus quarterly releases. And if you've got other products like OGL, they also have a cadence. So if you can take all those things into account, that's a lot of change happening all the time, and you've got a business to run. So the old method of I'll release a bunch of people to test it starts to get cumbersome and resource intensive. And I think this is where you need to get your testing approach in place and correct. And this is where automated AI testing comes into play. So all the modern ERP platforms have internal agentic features. And then you've got other things like Copilot and other predictive stuff that you've implemented as an organization, which means you have to test differently. You can't test in the old way. That has to change with it. So you can't say, I want a nice, shiny, modern AI with AI features in my product, but my testing is old school. The two just don't align and they don't work. So you need to then think, well, how do I do this? So quarterly releases, the biggest thing you can get automated straight off is regression testing. So that's all the stuff that you know is already in existence in your production estate. So your BAU operations, the new stuff that's coming as part of a new drop, that's what I call progression testing. So that's the new stuff. That you can probably do with a human because it's slightly limited in scope because it's only certain things you want to switch on. But your regression piece grows and grows and grows every month because every time you drop something in and you test it, it goes into your regression bucket. And that's the bit I would say you need to test automatically. Let AI do the work for you. So things like you can have a natural language processing based AI platform. You can write your scenarios automatically or it writes it for you. And then you can turn that into a script and then you can run that script. Now that's an awful lot of time saving and efficiency. And it means you can continue doing your day job. So you don't have to keep pulling resources out of BAU because what you're doing is you're robbing Peter to pay Paul.
And I think the key word that stood out to me there was efficiency. As we have these AI tools and they speed up things for us, we need to become more efficient because this extra work, as you mentioned, these quarterly updates and now with cybersecurity being a massive part of it, it's like trying to get a Formula One car with AI and then you're trying to use your tires from your normal car on that Formula One car. It's not going to work. You need to have Formula One tires for your Formula car. So your business needs to be AI ready when it's going to implement AI. Because as you mentioned, there's all these struggles that you're going to face. You need to become as efficient as the AI you're going to use, it sounds like.
Absolutely. And the AI keeps evolving as well itself. So not only is the product evolving, but AI in the testing world is evolving. So you need to keep the two together, aligned. So you need to maintain momentum. And I think having at least your regression pack automated via AI, and in the future, when you feel a lot more comfortable, you can even use the AI testing automation to basically look at the changes in the quarterly release and say, can you design for me scenarios for these changes? And it can look at those and say, yeah, here are some suggestions. And those can be then with the human eye verified and then turned into scenarios, then executed. So actually, there's a lot of opportunities to introduce efficiencies here. It also comes down to human confidence as well. Do I trust it to be right? But then that's where in the initial periods, you have a lot of humans eyeballing what it's done and checking and validating, which is what I said earlier in this podcast, which is you've got to have an accountable human involved and you've got to prove it from a local authority perspective that it aligns to and meets regulatory requirements. So UK GDPR, data protection laws, etc., etc., etc. But as you go through that process, you'll get more confidence to say, yes, this actually ticks all our boxes. That doesn't mean you'll leave it entirely to AI to do everything. Well, I don't think that should ever happen anyway, because you do need humans involved in that sense, but try to make your life easier. And that's what an AI testing automation platform can do for you.
Yeah, I think that's obviously important for any industry, but especially in the regulated environments.
Yes.
Because it's not just about systems working, and as you mentioned, it's proving that they work. That human insights as well. I mean, what does that actually require in practice? I know you mentioned it briefly there with having a human really analyzing the work that it's done, but what else is required in practice to have AI and it all work in these regulated environments that you're used to?
So I think, as I mentioned at the outset, it's the governance framework.
Yeah.
It's evidence led. It's having a human. Can it pass the sniff test? So if an auditor looked at it, what would they say? Yeah. So I think if you can pass if you've got the right governance in place, the right set of humans, sponsorship, and then what I call the sniff test, and there are quite a few of them, especially auditors, then I think assurance becomes a continuous control plane, not a hindrance. So that's why I always say get the foundations right. Once you've got the foundations right, you've proved it through continuous iterative practices and modeling, and then you can trust the results, then you'll have confidence across the organization in the public sector that this is a good thing, it works, we get the right results, and we know we're not going to be pulled up by auditors and or elected members and or external auditors and or the public.
Yeah. Do you believe that with all of those things in place, it'll, decrease risk
Decrease risk,
and also
decrease risks, increase efficiencies, reduce costs, and you can move people to more value-added work, like frontline services.
Yeah.
So efficiencies introduced here, savings introduced here, can be reallocated somewhere else, where it's more beneficial, like children's social care, adult social care. Yeah. Where especially in today's environment, where there's funding, here's opportunities to create funding for yourself by saving over here and efficiencies over here. So I think it's all, again, comes back to business transformation and mindsets.
I think once they have this in place, it won't just help with the adoption of AI, but it'll help the whole business and being more efficient and tackle these challenges and adopt systems more efficiently.
Exactly. Yeah. So adoption increases, it's faster, it's more efficient, it saves money, saves time, and it may release cash, real hard cash, for things you do need it for.
Yeah.
So you have to be innovative on how you generate, if you like, cash for other services, where previously you may have had that coming from a different place, and that's been reduced somewhat. Well, there are other ways of finding it.
I mean, a big question for you, Ramzan, for the future. Do you think, regulated organizations will be able to move faster with AI over time, or will assurance and governance become the limiting factor for that innovation?
I think it comes down to the individual organizations themselves. So if every organization implemented a similar approach that I outlined at the beginning in terms of a framework, so you have a governance first, evidence-led approach. You'll start with a problem, not with the technology. You have a named human who's accountable. You have the right governance in place, which is not too over-cumbersome, overbearing, enough for them to know what's going on, enough for them to test and validate the output, but flexible enough to allow AI or new technology to be implemented and continue. And then you meet the legal and ethical positions. So you have a criteria to say what we are doing. Is it going to pass the sniff test, or are we going to get pulled up? But then you have built-in observability, not just the team that's involved in implementing the tech and testing it and validating it, but some independent oversight assurance to say, well, have you thought about this and that? Making sure that your foundations are correct, especially your data, because even AI is not going to sort that out for you. That's something you have to do. And then make the proof continuous, not a one-off. So it's continuously provable, continuous evidence. And then you can enhance it to say, we found a few things that were not quite right, but we're going to continuously improve it. Go back to the governance, go back and evidence it and say, yeah, this is what happened. This is what we did. This is what changed. Here are the results. And there's no reason why it can't be fast, but it's not about fast or slow. It's about right. And once you've got all of those things in place, it'll become fast by itself, because it will be a continuous repetitive process that people are used to. So spend the time getting it right, the foundations. Once you've got that right, there's no reason why you can't just continue doing this for lots of other things.
I think it's a great mindset to have. I think when any business tries to rush this process, or their only aim is on speed, the chances of risk are
they're highly likely to fall over a lot quicker.
Yeah.
I mean, some people say, well, that's a quicker way to learn. Yeah, it is, but it's also quite costly.
And painful.
And painful. And in the public sector, it could be really painful and really costly. Yeah, especially when you've got statutory duties to meet. And you'll end up in the headlines for the wrong reasons.
Yeah, 100%. I think when businesses do it right and they do every step that you mentioned today, and I wouldn't say take their time with it, but make sure they go through all of these checkpoints and all of this checklist, and it'll be quick anyway. So
yes, it will
on this process, and then you'll get the rewards that you are looking for. And I think you've given so many good insights for people in the public sector and maybe even in the private sector as well, considering your background in terms of AI in that sort of regulated space.
Yeah.
And obviously how they're going to innovate when every change must be proven. But you've given so much good insight today, because I really appreciate you coming on to the ERP perspective. Before we get to the end, tell us a little bit more about obviously your recent work with Sim Consulting and what you're really helping people with at the moment.
So in terms of Sim Consulting, we obviously help with large-scale transformations, digital transformations, specifically in the ERP space. So we've done a few public sector, local authority implementations on the client side. Just to make it clear, we're not an SI. So we help the client understand what it is that they've bought. In some cases, we do the business case with them. We help them procure the right product, so to go through proper soft market testing to make sure they're picking the right thing, right tool, product for themselves. And then we help them devise the transformation approach itself, engaging the business, all the things I mentioned earlier. What does your data look like? Do you have enough people? What's your current processes? And that's across, and a local authority has many different directorates. It's not just about finance, HR, procurement, because there's adults, children's, infrastructure, regeneration, transport, waste, green space. They're quite huge, these organizations. I don't think people realize just how big they are. And they all have their own needs. And you have to take into account, how's that all going to work in this transformation? Have they had opportunity to input into this process? Do we know what they want out of it? So we do all of that work, and then we actually help work with the SI and the business to make sure the transformation is smooth. So mobilization from the outset, even pre-mobilization, all the work you need to do before you even start. Make sure you're ready. As I said, as we use the marathon analogy, get enough rest, do enough training, make sure you've got the right gear before you start the race so that you're fit and ready to go, because the journey itself is quite long and it's testing. Yeah. And yes, there will be lots of frustrations along the way, but just like a marathon. But if you're fit and ready, you've got the right gear, there's no reason why it can't be good. And then the other thing we do is we do have our own AI testing automation platform to help businesses, especially with quarterly releases, to ease the pain, make it more efficient, less costly, so you can spend a bit more time doing more value-added work.
Fantastic. Perfect. I mean, like I said, I'll link Sim Consulting below this video with Ramzan's profile and also some more details around these AI products and services. But Ramzan, what sort of situations that people are currently in at the moment, you'd advise them maybe to reach out or drop you a message to start a conversation with you?
Yeah, so I'm on LinkedIn. You can find me on LinkedIn. You can reach out, send me a DM. Happy to talk. I think we're currently working on a diagnostic tool to roll that out for people to engage, to say, where are you? How are you finding your transformation? Where are you at? Where can we help you? And it's no cost. Happy to do a free chat. And if it leads to something, great. If not, at least we can exchange ideas and views. Maybe something of help from us to you. It's not necessarily all about money. It's not. It's all about, for me, it's more important, like, you doing it in the right way. And if there's anything I can provide that helps you on that journey, more than happy to do so, because there's plenty of insights to share, experiences and ideas. And who knows, maybe you have something for me too to learn. We're always open.
100%. It's all about different perspectives, especially on the ERP perspective. And
yes,
thank you very much, Ramzan, for coming on to the show today and talking around AI in regulated ERP. I thought it was a fantastic conversation. We'll be available on all platforms if you're watching on YouTube, LinkedIn, Instagram, even TikTok, Apple Podcasts, Spotify.
Oh, wow. TikTok.
As well. So we're on all platforms, people interested in ERP. But like I said, thank you so much, Ramzan, and obviously Sim Consulting. And I'll see you on the next one.
Thanks, George. Pleasure. And it was great to talk to you, and look forward to another one, maybe.